Good morning. Welcome to this week's edition of Monday Messages. So, I was thinking about what to do this week, and there's just no way this episode cannot be about grief this week because it's 318,000 families are and more. That's just those that lost COVID are going through the grieving process right now, that they're not going to have that loved one that they want to have at that, Christmas tree. Maybe they've already even got Christmas presents bought that are still sitting under the tree. I promise you, it's somewhere that's the case, and so we're all going through a massive grieving process right now. This past week, I kind of was forced to go through the grieving process all over again. They aired the Amy episode for the show that I was talking about. I'm not even going to mention the name because I don't want to give it any publicity. So I had publicized it on Facebook. Many of you watching right now watch the show, and I was excited because I thought, oh, they're gonna pay tribute to Amy. They're gonna tell her story, and Amy will finally, everyone will know all about the horrific tragedy that happened to Amy. What I didn't get was, as I'm watching it, how graphic it was. I had, lots of times these shows will show you a little warning saying, due to the graphic nature of this program, you're advised, gives you a warning what's going to take place. There was no such warning here on the television, and certainly not by the producers when they approached me to be a part of this show about Amy. And I was mortified when I saw them in the opening start showing pictures, crime scene photos of Amy. I had to take I was like, did they just do that? And I closed my eyes because I was like, I can't see anymore. So I listened. I was like, okay, maybe it's just get through the credits, and it'll get better. And so thankfully, I got a hold of Amy's sister, who also was a part of the episode, to warn her because she didn't have the network, and she was gonna watch it later on. And I told her what was going on, and she, like myself, we were just like screaming mad. And I swear, I'm watching it. It got a little better afterwards because they started telling her story, and the happy music starts playing. They start showing St. Augustine, the safe little city, and Amy and I going out and having fun, and we're able to kind of give tribute to Amy and start telling a little bit about what Amy is. And that's what I thought more what was going to happen. And then they're telling, of course they're telling the crime story because it's a crime documentary. But then they start talking as it starts progressing. Yeah, I'm starting thinking, okay, we'll be okay. Then it starts going back to where they actually find her on New Year's Day. And the details they gave and the pictures they showed were unimaginable. I closed my eyes because it was so hard to take. But I wanted to listen, and I wanted to understand what the whole series was about, even if it meant I had to close my eyes for the whole last half of it. And by the time it had gotten done, I swear I was going through warp speed grieving process all over. It happened 30 years ago. I've had 30 years to grieve the death of Amy. But within an hour, I was forced to face that grieving process all over again. And I did go through it. It's like, I'm sitting there in denial that this is really happening, that they're showing this stuff. To bargain, it's like, I know it's not going to be as bad as I think. They just showed it at the beginning, and that's it. And it got, that didn't happen. And then I went into depression and anger, and I was posting on Facebook. I was, ranting and raving because I was pissed. And then I was depressed. I was mad at myself for participating, and I was depressed that this is what the episode turned out to be, and that I was a part of it. And then I don't know if it was Amy or God or what, but suddenly the thought came into my mind. It's like, no, Kelly, it, it tells Amy's story graphically, yes. And it was going to happen with or without you. At least you and Kim were able to give life to Amy and let the world know in this episode just what an amazing person Amy was. And I got to that place of acceptance to where I was able to put my head on the pillow and sleep that night, knowing that, you know, if anything, I helped to pay tribute to Amy and bring Amy to life. And for that, I was grateful because that was the last part they did show on the episode was Kim and I talking about Amy. We got the last word, and they showed up, Kim showing the locket that she has of Amy that she wears every day to this day. So there it is, the grieving process in like warp speed time. When this happened 30 years ago, it was excruciatingly hard. Oh my God. Because one day Amy's here and we're, life is good and we're having fun doing our thing. And the next day she's gone forever. And just, it was like having your heart ripped out. And so I thought about this episode this week, in that, maybe talking about the grief process a little bit can help people who are going through the grief process right now. I'm okay right now. I went through my my grief cycle that night again, and I've been feeling a little uneasy for the past few days, but day by day it gets a little better. However, there's people right now suffering right in the heart of grief, whether it's they lost a loved one who meant the world to them, whether they lost their job, whether they're having to end a toxic relationship that, was bad for them, but that still will pull you through the grief cycle. I remember when I broke up with my little toxic relationship. Let's just call him Charlie because that's his name. And so we, I was in denial for many years about how bad this relationship was, and then finally, I decided I had to let it go. I had to actually walk through the pain, and that was the grief process. And actually, the book Melody Beattie's book, Codependent No More. I was an avid reader, an avid fan, but she talked about the grief cycle, going through the grief process of getting out of a codependent, toxic relationship. And for me, knowing that, just following, when I was going through the process, as long as I understood, okay, here's where I'm at. This is where I need to be. I can get through. I'm in the bargaining phase. All right, let's just keep pushing through. Okay, now I'm in the depression phase. Now I'm in the anger phase, and I'm vacillating back and forth till finally it broke loose, and I got to that acceptance phase. So for me, lots of times just knowing gave me that relief. It was like when I used to fly. When I would fly for Nickelodeon, I was terrified. Every time I got on the plane, I was sure the plane was going down. And I loved going on United because in their sound system, you can actually listen to the pilots. So rather than listening to, cool jazz or Broadway tunes or the hot hits, I'd be sitting there monitoring the flight going, okay, the plane would start bouncing up around. And I was like, oh God, we're going down. And I'd listen to the pilots like, oh, ground control, can we get a different altitude? Because the flight's getting a little bumpy. And they're like, sure. And I was like, okay, we're going up. And I was like, go up. And okay, we got a smoother ride. I was like, so I would monitor the flight. Like I could even do anything if God forbid the worst thing were to happen. But as long as I knew what was going on, I was okay. It gave me comfort. It gave me relief. So that's the thing with the grieving process, the 5 stages of grief: denial, bargaining, depression, anger, and finally into acceptance. And if you, as you're going through them, it's kind of helpful, at least for me to know as I'm going through them. It's like, okay, I'm going through it right now, but the only way out is through here. So as long as I just keep putting one foot in front of the other, feel my emotions, know that, okay, I'm going through the grieving process right now. But on the other side of the grieving process, there's relief, there's freedom. And I've just got to trust that as I'm feeling these emotions, eventually it's going to be okay. Here's what I want to say for those that are in severe grief right now. And they may be thinking that the pain is never going to end because it's excruciating right now and it's scary right now. And they just don't think they're ever going to feel normal again. And I can tell you, I thought the same thing. I felt the same exact way after Amy died. And sometimes you want to, in the heat of, your mind tells you, just give up. It's never going to happen again. You're never going to feel normal again. You're going to be destined to a life of gloom and doom. Don't listen to it. You will feel better again. I promise you. But you got to go through it. Don't choose the alternate option that so many people might be thinking of choosing, which is ending their life so they don't have to feel the pain anymore. That's not a solution. That's a permanent solution to a temporary problem that's going to go away. It will get better. The grieving process does get better in time. Even if it feels like it doesn't, it will. I promise you. You just walk through each day and get through each day as best you can for that day. And for me, having to go through the grieving process, I had to humbly rely on my higher power to pull me through, which I choose to call God, and whatever the higher power of your choosing. Reach out for help with support groups, grieving support groups. I could tell you to call hotlines, but I know if you're thinking about committing the final act, that's the last thing on your mind. I'm going to just tell you, don't do it. It's not gonna be worth it. My friend Ron was telling me that he was watching this thing about this guy who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, and he actually lived. He survived the fall, but he was, paralyzed the rest of his life. But he said that as he was going off the minute he jumped off the bridge, he instantly regretted it because he realized he didn't want to die, and he didn't die. But now he's living in the aftermath of that fateful decision he made. So just hang in there. It's going to get better. You got to walk through the process. This too shall pass. But in the meantime, there's the meantime. You got to get through the meantime. And once you get through the meantime, life gets so much better. I promise you. So just for today, if you're grieving something, whatever, even if it's a small grief, don't choose alcohol, don't choose suicide, don't choose alternate solutions. Choose a spiritual solution. That's really the only thing I've ever found that works. Alcohol, drugs, they're temporary band-aid, and they only make matters worse. And if not, many times they're tied right together with the suicide solution, because many people do the impulsive act of suicide while their judgment is impaired on drugs or alcohol, because at the time that seems like a good idea. So just know, if you can give this over to God and you can walk and let God carry you through this, you're going to be just fine. And you're going to hurt, and it's going to feel anger, and you're going to go depression, but you're going through the grieving process. And as you go through the grieving process, know that you are loved and you're supported and you're perfectly fine, and you're going to be perfectly fine on the other side of this. So that's my happy message today for you. It doesn't always have to be a happy message. It can be a powerful message, and I hope that this is a powerful message for you today. If this makes a difference in one person's life, this is the message that needed to happen today. So, with that, Christmas is this week, and I'm I'm thinking about all of you out there and knowing that it's going to be a different Christmas, but next year, please God, we'll all be back to normal, as whatever normal is, if there ever was a normal in the first place for this lady. So have a wonderful Christmas, and I will see you next week for another edition of Monday Messages.